think those are now resolved. So yeah, as you come in, yeah, just be please be aware that we are recording this presentation today, and it will be uploaded to YouTube at a later date. So if for some reason you have to leave early or you can't make it today, I will get that uploaded as soon as possible. And in the meantime, if you do have questions in the chat, we do take general questions, legal questions. If you have any specific legal questions to your circumstances, we will encourage you to call our intake line, and that contact information will be provided during the presentation. Otherwise, yeah, we will have that recording up to YouTube as soon as possible. And yeah, I will continue to let people in, Rachel. If you would like to take it away from here, I will continue to admit people. And again, I do apologize for some of those technical difficulties, but that is part of the wonders of technology. So thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks, Isaiah. And thank you everyone for joining us today to talk about solo senior issues of safety and stability. My name's Rachel Funk. I'm a staff attorney at Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services in the Legal Advocacy for Older People project. Just to start, I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization. So Southern Minnesota Regional Legal Services was founded in 1909. We just celebrated our 115th year of service last year. We provide free civil legal help for people in need in the 33 counties of Southern Minnesota. And we take cases that don't generate private attorneys' fees and that private attorneys won't take. So we focus on areas that private attorneys don't really focus on. Um, Specifically, our practice areas include housing, so landlord-tenant law, also some other types of housing like contract for deed issues and things like that. We have a consumer law unit. We have an economic justice unit that handles public benefit issues. We have a family law unit, an education law unit, immigration, my project, the Legal Advocacy for Older People project, the Agricultural Workers project, and we also have hotline attorneys where folks can call into our intake line, and if they're eligible for services, they can receive same day advice from experienced attorneys through our hotline. Our senior law project, or the Legal Assistance for Older People project, is funded under the Federal Older Americans Act. And what we do is we do not means test, so we don't have asset or income tests for eligibility for our services. Instead, what we do is we focus on issues that are affecting people age 60 and older who are in the greatest social and economic need. And through our funding, we can provide legal information, advice, and representation, and these informational sessions. Our senior law project focuses on issues like elder abuse and exploitation, and that's going to be part of what we talk about today, is some strategies to avoid elder abuse and exploitation and remediate that. We also handle cases of eviction, nursing home discharge, assisted living contract terminations of services and or housing, termination or reduction of care services, so things like in-home care, hours, changes to the types of services that you're approved for. And we also help with appeals of public benefit denials, reductions, or terminations, fair housing, reasonable accommodations, and other issues too. Our project actually covers quite a range of different issues. To reach our office, if you have a legal issue that you'd like us to look at to see if we can assist you with, we have a 1-800 number or 877 number, and that is staffed from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, excluding holidays. That can be an easy way to reach us. You can also apply for services on our website, and we've put the link there. There are also legal kiosks around I think statewide actually. You can look for a legal kiosk near you where you can use a computer terminal to contact legal aid for your area. And then community partners can also assist their senior clients to identify legal issues and refer a case to our office through our legal risk detector. And I've put the link for our legal risk detector there. That's a questionnaire that you can go through with your senior clients if you're a community partner, a caregiver, to help identify whether something that has that they're facing is a legal issue that legal aid might be able to help them with, or if it's a different type of issue that other resources could help with. And you can also look to lawhelpmn.org to see if there are other legal aid organizations in your area and for fact sheets. For language accessibility, SMIRLS employs people who speak Hmong, Spanish, Somali, and other languages commonly spoken by our clients besides English. We use Language Line over the phone when neither our staff or existing community supports offer a suitable interpreter. We really do try to avoid using family members as interpreters, and instead we prefer to use Language Line unless the client has a different preference. Any interpreter service is at no cost to the client, so that is not a reason not to call us. You should feel free to call us regardless of your language needs. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about solo seniors and some safety and stability, a lot of all the S's. I'm going to go through what is a solo senior, some common concerns to solo seniors, and then today's objectives are to recognize commonly held concerns of solo seniors, which largely are around maintaining independence and preventing isolation. I'm going to provide some resources that provide access to services and assistance at home, and discuss options to preserve independence in decision making. We're also going to talk about learning to spot maltreatment and scams and resources to identify, prevent, and recover from maltreatment and or scams. So to start off, what do we mean by a solo senior? So Linda Camp from Turning Point Consulting has really honed in on what we mean by this. When we say solo, we mean an individual who, by choice or by circumstance, functions without the support system traditionally provided by family. So that's kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about a solo senior. Some common characteristics of solo seniors are that they're often very independent. Typically, there's not a spouse, although sometimes there can be a spouse. The family lives at a distance, or there's not involvement with the family, or there's no family. They live with recent or recently changed disabilities, so there's some change in their circumstances a little bit. They typically live alone, and they have friends or partners that are the same age or older. And in some situations, they have experienced trauma. That's a common characteristic, although that's not necessarily everyone who's a solo senior has gone through something that you would consider a trauma or a traumatic event. Some common concerns to solo seniors are, as we've noted here, also shared by non-solo seniors as well. So a lot of these concerns really cross that bridge between solo seniors and seniors that have more supports. But there can be some additional challenges to solo seniors in addressing these concerns. So, primary is maintaining independence. A survey that was conducted by the National AARP and the University of Chicago back in 2021 found that 50% of the survey respondents reported the concern of being moved somewhere against their will as they aged. 48% reported concerns about needing help with daily activities in their homes, and 39% reported concern of court appointment of someone to make decisions for them. So those are all issues about maintaining independence and concerns for loss of independence as you age. Also, preventing isolation is a very big concern for solo seniors. So 58% of the survey respondents reported concerns about being alone without family or friends around them. And 45% reported concerns about needing social and emotional support. So those are some very common concerns for solo seniors. There are a lot of different types of ways to address those concerns. For maintaining an independence, in-home care and assistance with activities of daily living can really help maintain independence and help a person stay in their home. Addressing safety at home can also be another way to maintain independence for a solo senior. And then also doing some advanced decision-making planning. And I'm going to talk about each of these in turn. That's also a way to maintain independence, is to kind of think ahead about how decision making can be done in the future or will be done in the future. For preventing isolation and abuse, which can often come hand in hand, identifying what maltreatment is and having some prevention resources for maltreatment. Also identifying scams when scams come up, which is a rising issue. And then some scam prevention and recovery resources as well can help to avoid isolation and abuse for a solo senior. So for services to remain in your home, if you're a solo senior and you don't have family living in the home with you that can help you with your activities of daily living, or even if you are a senior living with other family members who simply don't have the time or the resources to be able to help you in the way that you need, there are different programs in the state of Minnesota that can provide some services to help you stay in your home. And these are through the federal Medicaid program. They call them home and community-based services and supports. And the goal really is to keep people in their homes to avoid institutionalization. That's Medicaid's goal. That's also most individuals' goals as well. So in the state of Minnesota, we have something called Essential Community Supports. That is a program for folks who are age 65 and older, who are not financially eligible for medical assistance, and who do not need a nursing facility level of care. It's for folks who live in their own home, but it doesn't have to be a home that you own. It can be an apartment or even an assisted living, which is considered a home versus an institution. You do have to be financially eligible for the alternative care program. And you do need to require a service through the essential community supports to be able to live in the community. The alternative care program is also for folks who are age 65 and older, but this is for folks who need a nursing home level of care. And the idea behind alternative care, again, is that you can get services at home to avoid needing to be in a nursing home. For financial eligibility, it's different than straight medical assistance. So you're financially eligible for the alternative care program if you would be financially eligible for medical assistance within 135 days of entering a nursing facility. So if you had to private pay at a nursing facility for 135 days, and if at that point you would be eligible for medical assistance, then you're financially eligible for the alternative care program. And then the other requirement for alternative care is that the services that you require have to cost less than 75% of what medical assistance would pay for someone with similar care needs to be in a facility. And you have no other way to pay for those services. And then another program that is something very commonly used by our clients, at least, is the elderly waiver program. So this is a medical assistance waiver program for folks age 65 and older. You do have to be eligible for medical assistance, but there are a number of ways to qualify for medical assistance when you're in this age range. You do need to require a nursing home level of care, but again, the goal is for you to not be in a nursing facility, and you require covered services that would cost less than the cost of a nursing home. And that's a program that a lot of our clients are enrolled in. So the services that are available in these different programs really kind of cover a lot of different activities of daily living and a lot of different types of needs. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read through everything that's available in all of these programs, but I will kind of highlight some things that can really help solo seniors stay in their homes. So things like chore services in the essential community supports, home delivered meals in the ECS and the alternative care programs and the elderly waiver program. That can be really important for folks if you start feeling like preparing your own meals is beyond what you're capable of doing at the moment. Home delivered meals through these programs can be really helpful. a personal emergency response system under the essential community supports. Again, in case there's an emergency, you have that immediate assistance. Nutrition services, personal care assistance, which is a little bit changing now in 2025, but still having somebody come in to help you with those personal care issues. Skilled nursing visits under the elderly waiver, transitional services, so that can be funding to move if you need to be moving from where you are to a different location. Sometimes you can get that paid for through the elderly waiver. So there are a lot of different types of services you can get to help you stay in your home as a solo senior. One of the big issues that people have when they're solo and in aging in home is falls. So according to the National Institute of Health's National Institute on Aging, 1 in 4 adults age 65 and older fall each year. And studies do show that an injury from a fall can be an initiator of diminishing capacity. For folks who are in that age range, sometimes a fall can really have a huge impact on the quality of life and can trigger some isolation and a lack of stimulation, which can lead to a cognitive decline or just, overall isolation, which can be very negative for mental health. So some of the things that you can do to try to maintain safety at home is install and use handrails and grab bars in your home. So common places would be in the bathroom or other locations where you're going to have to be getting in and out and up and down. Install bright lighting. Don't use throw rugs. Add non-slip material to tile, stairs, or other slippery areas. Keep cords and other types of items away from walking paths, and just generally keep the walking paths clear. So I mentioned in the last slide that elderly waiver and alternative care are programs that you can get some services through. And both elderly waiver, which is EW here in this list, and alternative care, which is AC in this list, they do have the option of applying for home and vehicle modifications under what's called the Environmental Accessibility Adaptations Service. So if you're eligible for those programs and you need to have a modification to your car or a modification to your home, like grab bars or maybe even a ramp, you can apply for at least some of that cost to be covered under your medical assistance, either your elderly waiver or your alternative care. You can also do that under these other waiver programs. These programs typically are for younger individuals, and you do need to have prior authorization for those services. And in addition, some modifications can be a reasonable accommodation under the Fair Housing Act. And a landlord cannot penalize you for asking them for a modification. So under the Fair Housing Act, your landlord doesn't have to pay for a modification, but you can request that they make a change to their typical rules so that you can pay for a modification like installation of a grab bar or possibly a ramp or something like that. You can also request housing accommodations to move to a different floor. If you're in an apartment building and you're up on the 3rd floor and there's no elevator and you're to a point where going up and down the stairs is not safe for you anymore, you can request to be moved to an available 1st floor apartment or to break your lease early so you can move to an elevator building. Those are very common reasonable accommodation requests under the Fair Housing Act. So, excuse me, another issue that solo seniors and other seniors do face pretty regularly is housing insecurity. Excuse me, and I'm going to talk about some resources that are available to you if you are facing housing insecurity, including falling behind in mortgage payments, having trouble with a reverse mortgage, or with your property taxes, or if you are a renter, either in an apartment building or an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing, you do have some rights to challenge an attempt to remove you from your home, either in eviction court or through the Department of Health. So for resources, if you are having trouble with a home that you own, we do recommend reaching out to a housing counselor from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. So HUD sponsors housing counseling agencies throughout the country that provide free or low-cost advice. There is a link, these slides will come out to you after this presentation. There's a link here for finding one near you, or you can call HUD's voice system to find a HUD counselor that is near you. If you're specifically facing foreclosure and you're looking to talk with a housing counselor, you can look for a foreclosure avoidance counselor. If you'd like to set up an appointment to talk with a reverse mortgage counselor, which typically you're required to do if you're considering applying for a reverse mortgage, there's also a list that's linked here of available reverse mortgage counselors. The foreclosure prevention counseling and homeless counseling services are free of charge. Other assistance may have a small fee for the services provided, and you should ask first when you call. If you're facing foreclosure or a problem with your reverse mortgage, you can also reach out to legal aid as well. Oh, I need to change slides to show you that. So our office does provide some advice and representation for folks who are going through housing instability issues. So that can be a landlord-tenant issue, can be a foreclosure issue, condemnation. Those are the types of issues that we can at least look at the case and determine if we can provide you with representation. So we've got our contact info here again as well. If you are in a different service area than our service area, every legal aid organization does have different services available. But in the state of Minnesota, this 877 number will get you routed to the right legal services organization for your region, and they will be able to tell you whether the issue you're contacting them about is something they might be able to help you with or not. All right. Another wonderful resource in the state of Minnesota is the Senior Linkage Line. This is a free service. There's the 800 number here, and Senior Linkage Line helps folks who are age 16 over connect to resources in their area. So that can include things like connecting with services for you to remain or return home, finding meal services, congregate dining, assisted transportation, volunteer visitors, or phone calls, and homemaker and chore services. And they also are really wonderful at helping folks sort through different health insurance options. So if you are starting out on Medicare, or if you're considering an Advantage plan, or if you're wondering how to go through the application for medical assistance, those are all wonderful things to contact Senior Linkage Line about, and they're often able to help you do your application over the phone or set up an appointment for you to help you with the application. Okay, so the next area that I said we were going to go through is planning for decision-making independence, right? That's one of those big concerns for seniors as you're aging in place, is maintaining your own decision-making and making sure that you are in charge of your decisions. So if you are planning in advance, the you column here says what you will put together to plan for these different items. So if you're planning for your future finance decisions, that's going to be something called a power of attorney. If you don't plan for decision making in the future with a power of attorney, then if you do need help with your finances in the future, it may be something where the court establishes what's called a conservatorship. Then for your health, you can do a healthcare directive now to write down now what your decisions will be in the future, and you can appoint a person to help with your decisions in the future. If you don't do that and you are at a point where you need someone to make those decisions for you, or you've lost capacity, then the court may establish a guardianship over you. And then for your estate, if you have an estate that you're looking to, pass down to your relatives or friends or an organization, you can make a will to plan for that, Or if you don't do that, then there's something called intestate succession, which is just based on the statutes. So Minnesota has statutes that say who inherits what when somebody passes away without a will. A healthcare directive is essentially a combination of a living will and a power of attorney for healthcare. So I think maybe around 5 or 10 years ago, the statutes were changed a little bit in Minnesota. It used to be that living wills were a thing, and now they're not actually really a thing anymore in Minnesota. A healthcare directive can provide healthcare instructions to your healthcare providers and others assisting with your healthcare. And it can also create an appointment for a healthcare agent to make decisions on your behalf. So that's why it's kind of a combination of those two things, the living will and the power of attorney for healthcare. You don't have to do both of these things in a healthcare directive. You can choose just to put the instructions in there for what you want your decisions to be in the future, or you can appoint a healthcare agent, or you can do both. So you don't have to do the two together if you don't want to. A healthcare directive in Minnesota is not operative unless you lack decision-making capacity as determined by a physician. So it is only effective when you do not have capacity, and its effectiveness ends when you regain decision-making capacity. So appointing a healthcare agent or writing down your healthcare directive only comes into play if you've lost capacity as a way for those healthcare providers to know what you would want if you had capacity. You can change it if you prefer to have someone have healthcare decision-making authority before you've lost capacity or when you have capacity, you can certainly do that. But under Minnesota law, if you don't specify, it is only effective when you do not have capacity. And the powers that the healthcare agent would have are to exercise your rights over medical records, so they could get your medical records. They can follow any lawful instruction that's in the healthcare directive. So if you have a do not resuscitate, or if you have a specific type of medical procedure that you don't want to be performed on you, they follow those instructions. And they're permitted to speak with medical personnel on your behalf as well. A power of attorney is for financial transactions. So when you do a power of attorney, that does not give that person authority to make medical decisions for you. It's only for financial matters. Unlike a healthcare directive, in Minnesota law, a power of attorney becomes effective as soon as you sign it, and you have to specify whether you want it to be effective if you've lost capacity. So the default is that it's only effective when you have capacity, and you have to make a special note in the paper that you want it to be effective if you've lost capacity. You can also specify in a power of attorney document that you don't want it to be effective until you've lost capacity. But the default is that it is effective immediately upon signature and verification. You can appoint anyone that you want who is age 18 and competent and older to be your attorney in fact, and that person is authorized to act on your behalf in financial matters, but their decisions do not supersede yours. So you're essentially appointing a second person who's able to make financial decisions on your behalf, but you're not removing your own ability to make your own financial decisions. So it's always good to appoint somebody that you have really good communication with, so you avoid having any kind of conflicts there with what they're doing and what you're doing. And you can appoint as many attorneys, in fact, as you want. You can have that be where they all have to agree before taking any action, or you can make it that each of them gets to have the same authority as the others. It's kind of up to you. Minnesota does have a statutory short form power of attorney, so they have a form that you can fill out. You can go to lawhelpmn.org and you can have that form filled out online, and then you can print it out and have it, you sign it in front of a notary public and have them stamp it. Or if you're looking for something that is a little bit different than the usual defaults for a power of attorney, you can reach out to a private attorney to help you draft something that meets your needs. There are additional places where you can get these different forms. And most medical clinics will have a healthcare directive form that you can ask for to fill out. And in my experience, a lot of the clients that I talk with or people who come to these presentations say that, every time they go into their doctor's office, the doctor's office asks them if they want to do one. So I think it's pretty typical to have these forms in the doctor's office. And you can also work with a private attorney to draft both or either form. In the interest of time, I'm not going to talk too much about wills and intestate succession. I think everybody has kind of a good background on that, but there are different kinds of things that you're not able to do um, in your will, like it completely exclude your spouse, for example. And if you do not, I think there's a common misconception that if you don't have a will, then the state just takes all of your estate, and that's not true. The statutes do specify that your family members get your estate. So that's something to kind of be aware of. Supported decision making is another type of assistance for folks to be as independent as possible without having a guardianship or a conservatorship imposed on them. So it's something that the Minnesota statutes have included now in the statutes, and it's a real focus for Minnesota to be doing supported decision making instead of finding people to have no capacity and establishing a guardian. So the individual can create a support team who can help them with making their own decisions. And those support team members do not make decisions for the individual. There's a link here for the Disability Hub MN website about supportive decision making. And that I think is a really great resource if you're interested in looking into supported decision making more, to find out some best practices and ways that you can get that set up for yourself or for your loved ones. Okay. Excuse me. So, I've talked now about supported decision making and maintaining independence in terms of your ability to make your decisions and staying at home. Another very big area of concern for solo seniors and other seniors as well is isolation, maltreatment, and abuse. In data that was collected in 2022, the Department of Human Services in Minnesota reported that they received a total of 59,907 reports of maltreatment for adults. And those covered a variety of different types of maltreatment, including emotional abuse from other folks, physical abuse from other folks, sexual abuse, financial exploitation by fiduciaries. So a fiduciary is a person who is supposed to be acting in your best interest, who is appointed in one way or another to be acting in your best interest, or by a non-fiduciary. So that would be someone who doesn't have a specific requirement to act on your behalf, but is in another way exploiting your finances. Caregiver neglect was another very large area of reporting of maltreatment, and self-neglect as well. And that would be when someone doesn't have a caregiver caring for them and they're not able to care for themselves, as demonstrated by the circumstances that they're in. Under Minnesota law, maltreatment is defined as physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, caregiver neglect, self-neglect, or financial exploitation. So that's where those categories of reporting come from. The best way, or one of the main ways to report abuse or suspected abuse of a vulnerable adult is to make a report to the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. It's also called the MARC. So you may hear out there in the communities that some people talk about making a MARC report or being mandatory reporters for MARC, things like that. That's what they mean, the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center. It is a centralized agency that is supposed to basically be the center point for making these reports. And then MARC, once they receive the report, refers it to a local lead investigative agency to look into the matter. Um, and so the lead investigative agency is the one that will actually do the investigation and make a determination about whether there's additional supports or services or other action that needs to be taken. Sometimes when you make a report to MARC, you do get a letter back from MARC saying that they did not think it was something that needed to be investigated. We do see that pretty regularly. I try to tell people not to be discouraged by that. Sometimes it's that MARC doesn't quite understand what you're reporting about, and it can help to make another report. And there are some other things that you can do as well if you're concerned about uh, uh, abuse of a vulnerable adult, either for yourself or a loved one. This is more information about how to contact the Minnesota Adult Abuse Reporting Center, or MARC. And this is also, I should have specified as well, Adult Protective Services is underneath this MARC umbrella. So if somebody's talking about reaching out to APS or getting APS involved, that would start with a MARC report. Okay. So the Adult Protection System through MARC offers assessment of suspected maltreatment and some adult protective services. It's the responsibility of the Adult Protective Service to assess all reports and offer protective social services where necessary. It's also their mandate to prevent maltreatment, to safeguard the adult who's vulnerable, and to provide safe services and environments for adults who are vulnerable. So this is the mandate and the goal of the Adult Abuse Reporting Center and APS generally. And that's why reaching out to them if you suspect abuse is a great idea, because you can kind of trigger an investigation and some action there from the state and from the local investigative agency. But it's also important to remember that abuse is a crime and you can report it as a crime as well. So if you witness a crime against a vulnerable adult, or if you as a solo vulnerable adult are experiencing abuse, you can call 911 to report that. Law enforcement can intervene immediately to remove the person if a crime has been committed. And a police report, even if law enforcement's not able to immediately intervene, a police report can become an important document for legal aid or for other legal assistance, depending on what action you want to take as the person who's had a crime committed against them. So it's of course up to you whether you want to make that report, but I think sometimes folks forget that abuse of an adult is a crime, and that can be reported to the police. If you have experienced overreach by a fiduciary or someone that you have appointed to make decisions for you, so if they are exploiting you in any way, really, and you're not comfortable with that person being in charge of assisting you with making your decisions or having the authority to make decisions for you, you can revoke the documents that have appointed them. So for a power of attorney, as long as you have capacity, you can revoke that power of attorney at any time in a writing that is signed and notarized. And you want to be sure that you deliver that revocation to the person who has the power of attorney. So to your attorney, in fact, you have to deliver it to them so that they're notified that they no longer have the authority to make decisions for you. And you also want to deliver that to any financial institution that the attorney, in fact, has worked with before. So if you have a bank account and that bank has the power of attorney on their file, you want to make sure that you deliver that revocation to the bank as well so that they're notified that the attorney, in fact, can no longer make financial decisions on your behalf. For a healthcare directive, you don't have to follow the same kind of formality to revoke it, but we do recommend revoking it in a writing that you also deliver to everyone that has a copy of the original healthcare directive. So you want to be sure that whoever needs to know that there's been a change gets notified of that change. And that is your right. As long as you have capacity, you can make a change to anyone that you've appointed to assist you. You can remove them um, from that role. You are also able to access some other legal tools to maintain your safety if you're being abused. So an order for protection is a court order that stops a household or family violence um, that stops household or family violence by either excluding the abuser from your home if they're living with you, keeping them away from you, and potentially ordering temporary custody if you have minor children that you share with that person. Um, an order for protection is limited to situations of domestic abuse as that's defined in the statutes, and family or household members, which can include an unmarried partner, but you do need to have a relationship with that person to be able to get an order for protection. If you don't have a relationship for that person, or if the conduct doesn't meet that definition of domestic abuse, you may be able to obtain a harassment restraining order, which is a court order that would stop a person from contacting you or your family. You don't have to have any specific relationship. You just have to demonstrate that that person has been harassing you to be able to get the harassment restraining order. There are a number of organizations that help people with obtaining either filing for an order for protection or representation in their hearing for that order for protection. Our office is one of those organizations that can sometimes help in the court hearing. The Minnesota Elder Justice Center, they also provide information and resources around issues of abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation, and are sometimes able to represent in these order for protection and HRO cases. In the Southwest region, CADA is based in Mankato, and they often can provide emergency shelter, advocacy, and assistance with filing for orders for protection and HROs. And then in the metro region, Tubman is an advocacy organization that has a 24-hour crisis and resource line that can help you with filing for an OFP or an HRO. And the St. Paul and Ramsey County Domestic Abuse Intervention Project, or SPIP, also can help with those filing for those documents as well. And they do have attorneys on staff who can sometimes provide representation in addition. So there are a number of different organizations that you can reach out to if you're looking for help with trying to stop somebody from harassing or abusing you. And then there's also our office, as I mentioned. So the last piece that I wanted to make sure that I talked about in this hour is scams and avoiding scams. Scams are something that really are on the rise, and they're on the rise in terms of both the frequency of scams and also the sophistication. So I think there's a bit of a belief that you really have to be gullible to be scammed, and that's really not the case anymore. These scammers have gotten extremely sophisticated, and they really use psychology to push people into making decisions that they otherwise wouldn't because of this exploitation. So some signs of a scam to watch out for are something of claimed urgency. So if the person that you're talking with or who's texting you is telling you that they need something right away, you don't have any time to talk to anyone else, you don't have any time to think about it, that can be a sign of a scam. If they're asking for money or for information through unusual means, so, if they're asking you to send them photos of a gift card or, wire money overseas or give information that you typically wouldn't give over the phone, that can be the sign of a scam too. If they're pressuring you not to talk to other people, that could be a sign of a scam. Um, and if something just kind of feels off, that can also be signs of a scam. Some of these more recent scams with AI can even be phone calls that sound like your own family members contacting you, that are telling you that they need something from you. So again, that can be a really tricky situation to be in. But in any situation to try to avoid being scammed, the first thing, the most important thing to do is to slow down. It's almost never the case that somebody actually needs money immediately to resolve a situation, right? So you can always slow down to try to understand what it is that they're asking for and to try to verify who it is that's asking you for this information. For example, if you are contacted by somebody who says that they're a family member and they need money immediately, the recommendation from law enforcement is actually to hang up and to call back the person. So if it's your grandson or your daughter calling you to say they need you to send them money immediately, you can hang up and you can call your daughter's number back. And sometimes what you'll find is that she has not called you, and she is just hearing about this for the first time. So verifying through that is an important thing. And when you're in doubt, don't give the information out. If it's somebody with a legitimate reason to be contacting you, they're not going to be bothered if you say that you're not comfortable giving them that information over the phone and you want to, go to the bank in person or whatever it is. If they're legitimate, they're not going to try to pressure you into sharing sensitive information when you're not comfortable. If you have been scammed, um, you can report that to a number of different agencies. So you can make a MARC report. Again, you can contact the Minnesota Attorney General's office to see if they can investigate the matter. You can contact the Postal Inspection Services if you've received something in the mail. The FTC also can investigate issues of scams. You can contact local law enforcement, and you can also contact the FBI and the U.S. Senate Committee on Aging. They have a hotline as well. And in Minnesota, you can also make a report to the Minnesota Department of Commerce. So there are a lot of different agencies that you can report these scams to. The number one thing to do, of course, is to stop contact with the scammer and to report it so that law enforcement might be able to prevent someone else from going through what you've gone through. And then you also want to make sure that you notify your financial institutions that you have that someone has scammed you. And you can request a credit freeze and request your credit reports. So a credit freeze means that no one, including you, is able to open up a new bank account or get a loan or access any kind of credit in your name. Um, when you set a credit freeze, you are permitted to lift it if you have something that you want to apply for, and then you can put it back in place again. But it prevents other people without your authorization from using your information to access credit in your name. And then you can also request your credit reports. You can go through those reports to see if somebody has opened an account in your name that you need to report as fraud. We've got the numbers here for the 3 different credit reporting agencies that you can contact to set a freeze. Unfortunately, you do have to call each of them individually to set that credit freeze. But once you've done that, it's pretty simple to lift it if you need to and put it back in place. Um, Now, for the Attorney General's office, if you're calling about a business that you feel has scammed you, the Attorney General's office will contact the business on your behalf to try to resolve the dispute. And then they can provide referrals for appropriate agencies if available. Or if it's something that the Attorney General's office feels is part of kind of a pattern or practice, they are sometimes able to take enforcement actions against businesses, if it's something that's affecting a number of people. You can also file a fraud report with the Attorney General's office, and they will do an investigation into that fraud report as well. All right. Okay, so that was kind of the the speedy version. I appreciate everyone. I'm sorry I'm over the 3 o'clock hour. But thank you so much for joining us today. And we do have a few minutes we could stay on if there are any general questions. And otherwise, um, Isaiah will send out the slide deck to everyone who registered so that you have access to those links and phone numbers.
And we did start late too, Rachel. So yeah, I do not think we are
Okay.
technically not late. But yes, yes, if anyone has any questions, they can definitely please type them in the chat, and yeah, we will be able to see them and we can see if we can answer them. I think someone had a hand up. If you can type your question, that would be fantastic.
And just as a reminder, because this is kind of a public forum, you want to be sure that you don't put any of your personal information in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I have one question. Yeah, how does reverse mortgage work, Rachel? Do you know about that?
Oh, yeah, I can give kind of some basic information about a reverse mortgage. Um, so, a typical mortgage, you apply for it and then you get a large chunk of money to be able to buy your house, and then over time you pay back that large chunk of money. In a reverse mortgage, it's kind of the opposite. The lender pays you a monthly amount every month for the value of your house, and it reduces the equity in your house as you're receiving that. So there are some requirements. Not everyone is eligible for a reverse mortgage. You have to be in the right age range. You have to complete some counseling for that, and you have to apply for it. But it's essentially it's a way, if you have equity in your home, if there's value in your home that you're not able to access, you can access that through a reverse mortgage that then the bank would own your house at the end of the reverse mortgage. I hope that answers that question.
Topic worthy of its own presentation, I'm sure, right? Right, Rachel?
Yes, yeah, yeah, but that's good to know that there's interest in learning more about that.
Yeah. Let's see. All right, but yeah, if there's no more questions, yeah, we will certainly end it here. And yeah, as Rachel mentioned, yeah, we will send out. Oh yeah, I have one more follow-up question. Yeah, the bank owns your house under a reverse mortgage, Rachel. Yes or no?
At the end.
At the end.
You at the end, right?
Okay.
And I would recommend, if you're interested in learning more about reverse mortgages, the HUD website does have, if you just Google for HUD reverse mortgages, they have some really good information and fact sheets about those.
hmm And what if you still have equity, Rachel?
If you still have equity at the end of the reverse mortgage, you mean? Um, that's kind of a complicated question. I think what I would recommend is looking at the HUD website. And then if you are interested in trying to trying to apply for a reverse mortgage, you are required to meet with a HUD counselor. And those are some questions that you could ask the HUD counselor to understand what the impact will be for your house.
Okay. Okay, perfect. But yeah, yeah, yeah. As we had mentioned though, yeah, I'll be sure to send out a copy of the slides and a recording on YouTube. I'll send out a link to that in the coming days as well. So again, yep, thank you so much, Rachel, for the time, and yeah, thank you everyone for coming. And we apologize again for that initial little bit of confusion, but I think we marched along pretty smoothly after that. So, all right, thank you so much, everybody. And then this is the end of the meeting. So take care.
Thanks.